everyone. I guess I'll get started. I grew up on the Hutt Valley Indian Reservation, which is the same land my people have lived on since time immemorial. Through the reservation runs the Trinity River, a blue, swift stream that sits at the bottom of distant mountains. My family taught me that the river reflects the health of our community because it provides us food, joy, fresh water, and prayer. I grew up looking at my reflection in the Trinity River every day, my face smiling back at me with the serene hills in the background. Until there came one point in the summer when the river became too low and too filled with algae for me to see my reflection. The work of advocacy embodies the parts of our life that we value the most, and as advocates, we learn to turn anger into action when we feel these values are being threatened. My meals at home regularly consisted of locally gathered or hunted foods. I remember when I was a child and my head could barely see over the kitchen table and there would be fillets of bright pink salmon laid out. My small hands were tasked to rope the ends of the salmon fillets to be tied up in the smokehouse that we filled with fresh-caught salmon every year. While I stringed the salmon, my aunties seasoned and my great-uncle taught my cousins how to properly fillet a salmon. In the kitchen, there were 3 generations present, and each generation was passing down their knowledge to the next. As I grew up, I slowly began to see my traditional food disappearing from the dinner table, and we began to rely more on government commodities. My tribal culture has been fundamental to shaping who I am today. I owe most of my strength and confidence to my coming-of-age ceremony, which we call the flower dance. Becoming a woman in my tribe is honored with a 10-day ceremony for girls after they had had their first menstruation. Menstruation is viewed with such high esteem in my tribe because it shows the power women have to bring life into this world. This ceremony affirms the matriarchy in my tribe, but it is being impacted by climate change as the ceremony is land-based. I had to postpone my flower dance for 2 years. The first was due to the California drought that made it difficult to gather all the natural materials needed for my ceremony, and the second year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It pains me to think about how close I came to not being able to practice this beautiful ceremony. The river plays a central role in the flower dance, and without the river, the ceremony would not be complete. During the last 3 days, the flower dance girl runs to multiple river spots to say a prayer and sing her song. During these 3 days, she is introducing herself to the river, who we view as a valued member of our community. Because of the nourishment the water contributes to our shared ecosystem. These last 3 days are the most difficult for the girl because over the previous 7 days, she has been asked to undertake tasks she may have viewed as impossible before. At this time, the river is crucial to restoring her strength, and it is the first step to building a relationship with the river. By taking these moments with the river to reflect and build strength, the flower dance girl is learning how to replenish herself when facing adversity. Also, the flower dance girl is introduced to the matriarchs in the tribe. She works alongside the medicine woman to learn the various medicinal purposes for local herbs, self-care, and the purpose of all our tribal ceremonies. In my experience with the flower dance, having this opportunity to see my tribe come together showed me that I am capable of accomplishment on my own, but when I need support, my entire tribe is encouraging me. Being from a matriarchal community, I learned from an early age that my role was to be a leader in my tribe. My mom served on the Hutt Tribal Council, which, for those of you who may not know, in the United States and Canada, Native tribes have a sovereign status. Tribal nations have been practicing their own forms of government since time immemorial. When European colonization threatened our tribes, we used our knowledge and government to our advantage. Political negotiations became the vessel for survival as we reestablished our sovereignty. Today, tribal nations have a government-to-government relationship with the United States, allowing for us to have rights to our land, form our own legal systems, and represent ourselves when negotiating with other nations. As a councilwoman, my mom traveled to the state capital, Washington, D.C., and other reservations to advocate for the Hutt tribe. Being a single mother, my mom would take me with her along her journeys. By bringing me with her on her conference trips, my mother affirmed that I also had a right to enter these political spaces. As of 2018, Sheris Davids and Deb Haaland became the first Native American woman to be elected into Congress, introducing the matriarchal power from tribal nations into the US government. As voters, prioritizing Native voices in government is so important to the future of this country. We, Native people, are the future to a world without climate change. Tribes have practiced complex forms of self-governance without capitalism, which provides a perspective to move away from colonial structures and begin to live more sustainably. When I was 8 years old, I remember watching my mom practice her speech to the California State Water Board advocating for the removal of the Klamath Dam. The dam causes low water levels in the Klamath that jeopardize the salmon migrating to the Trinity. In my tribe, we understand the ways the ecosystem interweaves with each other. We know that if we take too much from one resource, it will deplete another. As a tribe, we went to the California State Water meetings to advocate for the board to create water policies that reflected this philosophy. As I watched my mother prepare her public testimony to the water board, I felt inspired and I ran to my room to begin working on my own speech. When I told my mother about it, she happily agreed to take me with her to provide my testimony. Ever since this foundational moment, I have been presenting speeches to the California State Water Board alongside members of my tribe. During the California Water Board meetings, tribal sovereignty was largely ignored. I have seen the Water Board shut off the mic of the tribal chairperson when they went over the allotted time. In moments like this, I felt a great sense of anger because it is a reminder of our oppression. At just 8 years old, I felt this hostility. I provided my testimony to a predominantly white male board while standing on a podium that I needed a stool to reach the mic. My body was shaking, and I felt the sadness swell in my gut. Providing my testimony is an experience that allows me to move through this pain, to develop my voice, and to learn how to articulate the injustices my tribe experiences in our daily lives. As I stand here today, I am happy to say that as a result of the Karuk, Yurok, Hupa, and Hupa tribes' political advocacy, the Klamath Dam is in the process of being removed. This will be the largest dam removal in history, and it will restore the salmon run and ecosystem in Northern California. The Klamath Dam, created to divert water to farmers and ranchers, caused the fish kill in 2002, reporting over 35,000 predominantly Chinook salmon. Thousands of bodies of salmon lay dead and rotting on the beds of our rivers. This was a moment of deep mourning for my people. As my mom says, when you give tribal people their rights, they will protect the earth and do right by the world. Native people have been effectively tending the land for centuries. This is seen in California fire records that show that traditional native land management systems have shaped the evolutionary course of plant species for at least 12,000 years. Specifically, the practice of controlled burns by California tribes has influenced the biological and geological structure of flora and fauna. Tribes continue to tend the land in a good way by creating high-quality forest management plans, water quality control plans, restoring controlled burning practices, and healing rivers through dam removal. I bring up this history because I think it is important to recognize how much the Hupa, Yurok, and Karuk tribe have created in environmental justice and rights since we were set back by colonialization. As tribes continue to practice their sovereign rights, it gives me hope for our shared future. Native resistance has been leading climate change initiatives, and we need allies. A great example of allyship is students at Tufts University assisting the Yaktahn Sioux tribe in South Dakota to research water quality risks. These students are being given the opportunity to work under the Yaktahn Sioux people and learn from their traditional knowledge systems. Universities are supporting tribal nations' fight against climate change, but where is Harvard on these initiatives? The Charter of 1650 holds Harvard responsible for uplifting and providing space for tribal nations. In 1650, Harvard College promised the Massachusetts tribe a free education in exchange for land. This agreement was also made in light of Harvard's financial bankruptcy and the federal government's willingness to fund educational institutions that would, quote, kill the Indian, save the man. The goal of the charter was to destroy tribal cultures, like my own. In this historical context, Native voices in the present need to be uplifted. The funding from the federal government that Harvard received for the Indian College is in part why this institution is still here today and is now the richest university in the world. Yet, Native people don't see any of Harvard's resources going towards their tribes, and this needs to change. There is a plethora of traditional knowledge that is ignored by the field of science due to racism against Native peoples. Climate change is here, and we don't have time to waste. It is time to finally invest in Native people to lead us out of this environmental catastrophe. Thank you for listening to my story.